want to welcome our Zoomers and say hi to them. There they are. Hey, everybody wave. We pick up some of you. That's great. It's always wonderful to be here, whether we're here together in the sanctuary or we're here together on Zoom. We are the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Lake County, and we are an inclusive, non-creedal fellowship that works for a just community and fosters a lifelong search for personal spiritual fulfillment. Yes.
Could you get a little closer to the mic? So
yes, I can.
Move the mic down to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. We good now? Better? No?
Move the mic as close to your mouth as you can.
We've always used this before. How about this? Better? Okay. I'm going to start talking and we're going to see how it goes. Okay, we got it good now? Oh, yay. Okay, thank you for your patience. We go back and do this again. We welcome all to share our congregational life. At UUCLC, we value making a difference in ourselves, in our community, and in our world. I am Janine Reagan, and I am honored to be your service leader this morning. I am joined by Terry Sullivan, our wonderful pianist, and we thank Dustin and Doug, who are our AV people today, who obviously is saving my butt right now. Okay. We gratefully acknowledge the traditional lands of the Timucua Native peoples upon whose ancestral homelands our church stands today. We are blessed with this land, and we vow to care for it as our Mother Earth cares for us and for all living things. Today is a very special day, as it is the first time in nearly 3 years that we have our own minister. Rev Cynthia Snavely has been serving as the full-time interim minister at our sister congregation, Tri-County UU, that's located in Summerfield, which is really only about 45 minutes from here, just a little bit north of the villages. But starting today, the two churches will be sharing Rev Cynthia as a half-time interim minister for both churches for the next 18 months.
So she's a full-time minister now, right?
She's full-time.
In 2 places.
In 2 places, exactly. Got it. So a little bit about our new minister. Reverend Cynthia, and she is okay with being addressed just as Cynthia, grew up in the Methodist family in central Pennsylvania. She started her career in the ministry in the Methodist Church, but after 7 years, she changed to UU in the early 1990s. She notes that her theology has changed, but her calling has not. She describes herself as a humanist who draws from Christianity, Buddhism, and neo-paganism for a current vision of her own theology. Reverend Snavely believes a religious congregation should offer 3 things to its people: a place to experience and share wonder and awe with others, a spiritual community of people who are there for one another in times of joy, sorrow, and need, and a place and community in which to work for the betterment of the world. She has served as a UU minister in 3 Maryland congregations and in Pennsylvania and West Virginia. Reverend Cynthia was the administrator for the UU for Social Justice in Washington, D.C., and she last served a UU fellowship in New Bern, North Carolina. Cynthia resides in Lady Lake, which is well positioned between the 2 churches that she's serving. She lives with her daughter and 3 of her 4 grandsons, 1 dog, and 2 cats. She is a vegan. Her topic today is I pledge allegiance to. But first, a few announcements, right? Now, we have a lot of announcements today, and I don't apologize for that because These announcements represent just what an active church community this is and the important things that it's doing. You will find that many of the events that are coming up are very exciting, and we hope that you will choose to be involved with them. But first, please mute your phones, or we'll have to start a $5 penalty. And if you're on Zoom, please stay muted unless you're called upon to share. Each week, you receive the service bulletin attached to your Sunday service email. There you will see that we have many groups and committees. Some are live at the church, some are on Zoom, and some are a combination. So check the bulletin to see, because you do have choices. You will also find information on upcoming activities. Far too often, I hear members say, "Oh, I didn't know that was going on. Oh, did we have that event? When is that going to happen?" Everything is presented in the bulletin and in the monthly communicator, both of which come out through the hard work of Christy Malott. Staying connected requires good communication. These emails are our best way to do that. Please take a minute or two each week to look at these publications when they come out. Check them, be informed, be part of an active church. If you do not receive these emails and are interested in doing so, please leave us your email address at the sign-up sheet in the narthex, or contact us at office@uulakecounty.org. And now for one of the announcements that everybody's been kind of waiting for. The Board of Trustees of UUCLC and Tri-County UU met with Rev Snavely, and they all agreed that there will be no change in the Sunday service starting times that they thought might allow Rev Snavely to preach live at each church 3 Sundays per month. For now, we will go back to the original plan of a mixture of live presentations and pre-recorded presentations. The matter will be reviewed again during the, probably at the end of March, to see how that's going. The membership committee is again offering an orientation class. This class is open to anyone who would like to learn about UUCLC and Unitarian Universalism. The next class will be scheduled when we have enough names on the sign-up sheet, which is just outside the door here in the narthex. If you have questions about the class, please speak with Jane Lovejoy. I don't think she's here today, or you can speak with me. On Saturday, March 25th, just about a month from now, UUCLC will be holding its first ever open house. Our goal is to invite the surrounding communities to get to know us. There will be many activities that day, and they will require person power to make them happen. Please look over the list that was printed in the bulletin. I do not have the sign-up sheet there today, but it will be here next week. So look at that list, find something on there that you'd like to be involved with, and then be sure to sign up and let us know that you will be part of that activity. Refunds for the David Roth concert will be made for the next several Sundays in the narthex. Please bring in your tickets. We are scheduling David in January of 2024. UUCLC has been invited to join several other organizations working on conservation in a special area of the George Fest. George Fest is a big Eustace festival. And is devoted to conservation and wildlife, and it's sponsored by Duke Energy. Nationally, we leaped at the opportunity to tell our conservation story to the public. We will be there with a UUCLC display, which illustrates congregation life as well as our conservation activities. The Social Justice and Environment Committee members will be there working at the display, but they would greatly appreciate some help. If you have a little time to contribute on Saturday, February 25th, that's next Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 4, and you don't have to be there all day, you can just come in and take a shift. They will make sure that you are paired with someone who has experience in presenting our display to the public. If you can help with that, please let Karen Woolhouse, Karen's back here, let Karen Woolhouse know, or email her at woolhouse@earthlink.net, and she will add you to the roster. Now Karen and Jane Hepting have an announcement they would like to make. If somebody would bring a mic to them.
Hi, everyone. I'm your contact for the Eco Expo within UUCLC. I'm coordinating our participation, and Jane is the chair of the overall event. I want you
opportunity to learn more. It's also an opportunity for you to be there and ask questions. We have 11 governmental agencies coming. And I really hope you'll go down and talk to these agencies and let them know that you're behind them to the extent that these employees can deal with environmental issues. They need encouragement. We have 12 nonprofit conservation groups there. Find out what they're doing. Let them know that you support them, because volunteers get kind of tired and they don't feel that other people are behind them. Now, as Karen said, we need volunteers not only to staff our exhibit. So I have some sign-up sheets. Also, set up. I can't find any strong people to come carry boxes to help us move things into the building, to set up the tables and chairs. So I have that on here. Also, there are different tables with regard to registration that need to be staffed. At the bottom of the sheet, we also have the Sign Up Karen's project, our exhibit. We want to start that around. So if you're able to come, put in your name and email address and phone number. And then the other thing is, I'll be so busy, and so many of our other volunteers will be so busy, we're not going to get to hear all these workshops. So I'm looking for volunteers who'd be willing to go to a workshop and take notes, and then later, I think it's going to be March 26th, our Sunday discussion, we'd like to have you spend 5 minutes just reporting what you learned, what were the high points of that workshop, so all of us can hear it. Now, some of you might be able to handle one workshop, they're 45 minutes long, or maybe you would want to do 2, or 3, or 4. If everyone just does one, I need 8 volunteers. If you'll do 2, I'll need 4. So if you'd be willing to do that, go, take notes, and prepare a 5-minute summary to present on March 26th. I'm sorry I've been so long-winded, but you can tell I really need help. Thank you. Flyers, so I'll pass them around. There's more in up there. That should tell you when and where and all that information.
I think I heard someone ask, what time does it start?
Yeah, 8:30.
8:30.
March the 4th.
March 4th.
8:30 to 1.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Karen?
Okay, lots to be involved with, very important stuff. Just a reminder that today after the service, we will have a reception welcoming our new minister. And Bernie is making sure that there's a very nice lunch available and everyone is invited. Do we have any other announcements? Okay. Our opening words from our new minister.
American politician, actor, retired professional wrestler, and former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, said, "There is much more to being a patriot and a citizen than reciting the pledge or raising a flag." A shout flag?
If you are a first-time visitor or perhaps returning after an absence, and only if you are comfortable doing so, I invite you to wave your hand and you will be called on to tell us who you are, where you're from, and perhaps what brought you here today. Please wait for the mic to get to you so we can. Do we have anybody that's new or returning after a while? Oh, we have a gentleman in the back there.
Good morning. My name is Renee Coral, and I live in Terravis, Florida. And I saw the ad through the Triangle, so here I am.
Welcome. And remember that when we're having our reception afterward. When you see people that have red name tags on, that means they're visitors, first-time visitors. Be sure to say hi and get to know them. This morning, Igor Emery is going to be our chalice lighter. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, a celebration of life we share together. Christine Robinson. Please remain seated while we sing Spirit of Life. Each Sunday, we make time for those who wish to offer a joy, a concern or sorrow, or to set an intention for the coming days. As we share joy, it multiplies. When we share sorrow, it leads to lessen. Sharing an intention can give us strength. If you would like to take part in our stone ritual, I invite you now to come in silence to place a stone or stones in the sand at either our station in the front or the one in the back. Following this time, anyone who has a joy, concern, or intention that you wish to share aloud with the congregation, please raise your hand and someone will bring a mic to you. If there's anyone who has not been mentioned that you hold concern for, please feel free to name them aloud at this time. Those attending Zoom, you may unmute briefly. And is there anyone who wanted to share aloud? Pete?
Morning. I just wanted to share with you that UUCLC provided the venue for a Native American flute workshop followed by a concert yesterday. And I share this with you for two reasons. One is, while we were not hosts, we did provide the venue for this activity. And the people that came here were very complimentary of our facilities, asked questions about us. So I think that's a value to us. The other reason is that Val and I have received a lot of comments from folks here today and prior that nobody knew about this. Now I'm certain that Kristen put something in one of the places because I saw it. So that kind of reinforces what Janine said earlier, that we need to check our communications better. And I'm not being accusatory because I'm terrible at it myself. But it's a lesson for all of us, I think. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Janine?
For all those things named and for all those things that are too tender to speak, we collectively hold them in the light of our compassion and in the warmth of our community. We will now enter into a time of silent meditation, being mindful of the joys and concerns we have just heard. Take a moment to find a comfortable posture and let the chime draw you into mindfulness. And then Terry's lovely music will bring us back. Please join me in reaffirming who we are by reciting together our congregational covenant found on the screen. Love is the spirit of this church, and through service we live our principles. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Baseball, hot dogs, and apple pie. All of these things are icons of the United States of America that are recognisable the world over. And there is another that, mainly thanks to Hollywood, is also indelibly imprinted on the international consciousness when it comes to thinking about the good old US of A. The Pledge of Allegiance. If movies have taught me anything, it's that school kids all across the states all learned the ritual of the pledge. From the solemn words to the standing to attention, right hand positioned over the heart. The Pledge of Allegiance is such a part of American culture that it is easy to imagine that it has always been so. perhaps first conducted at the signing of the Declaration of Independence by the Founding Fathers. But no, in fact the pledge has a much shorter but extremely surprising history. For starters, it was written by this guy, Francis Bellamy, only in 1892. The original words were, "I pledge allegiance to my flag and the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all." It wasn't until 1923 that the addition of "to the flag of the United States of America" was added. Then in 1954, President Eisenhower decided that it needed a bit of a tweak to "one nation under God." So okay, the words have changed. That's no big deal, right? Well, what is interesting is who wrote the original pledge. Francis Bellamy was a Baptist minister. Yet despite his religious calling, he was firmly of the opinion that the separation of church and state was of supreme importance, and so had very deliberately not included any religious terminology in the pledge. In fact, when Eisenhower added his addition, Bellamy's daughter objected to the combination for this very reason. But Eisenhower was concerned about the threat represented by communism, and so thought that the pledge needed that greater focus to counter the dangers of left-wing ideology. So he probably wouldn't have been very keen on Bellamy Sr.'s own thinking on this, because Bellamy was a socialist. To be specific, a Christian socialist. This blends Christianity with socialism, justifying this on the grounds that in the early church, as mentioned in Acts 2, all the believers were together and had everything in common. Selling their possessions and goods, they gave to anyone as he had need. Obviously, the theological and ideological basis and thinking is a bit more complex than I'm spelling out here, but I'm sure you get the idea. According to one of his biographers, Bellamy believed in the rights of working people and the equal distribution of economic resources, which he believed was inherent in the teachings of Jesus. I'm not sure what those sorts of ideas would get him labelled as in modern America, but I have some suspicions. Anyway, Bellamy wrote the pledge as a way for Americans to pull together in the post-Reconstruction era so as to go out into the world as a brave, new and united nation. Well, partly. It was also a bit of a marketing gimmick. In 1892, he was working for the Youth's Companion, a magazine for children and young adults. One of the publication's major campaigns was to have an American flag in every school in the United States, which the magazine had sold to them. In 1892, flag sales were down, and so something was needed to promote the schoolhouse flag movement. What was needed was some sort of ceremony. Now, it's not fair to say the Pledge of Allegiance was simply a marketing ploy to sell flags. No doubt Bellamy and those he worked with genuinely believed in the principles. But it is fair to say that the Pledge of Allegiance was partially a marketing ploy to sell flags. And of course, there needed to be some sort of ceremony to go along with the recitation of the pledge, a salute to the flag. Otherwise, what would have been the point of selling the flags in the first place? And Bellamy had that covered as well, as his published instructions stated. At a signal from the principal, the pupils, in ordered ranks, hands to their sides, face the flag. Another signal is given. Every pupil gives the flag the military salute. Right hand lifted, palm downward to align with the forehead and close to it. Ooh. To be fair, Bellamy was first, and one has to wonder if the salute, like certain other symbols that are forbidden by YouTube, was appropriated by a certain later political movement. And that, in fact, leads us to that other famed element of the Pledge of Allegiance, the right hand over the heart. This was actually introduced into law by Congress in December 1942, basically because of, that other guy. Naturally, some people weren't happy about this. Johnny Foreigner stealing our salute, that kind of thing. But it became the accepted and correct form. As an aside, the fact that the Bellamy salute, as it was called, was used right up until late 1942 explains why a number of Americans from the time have since been accused of having fascist sympathies. I mean, they might have had fascist sympathies, but throwing this salute was literally as American as apple pie, and so does not constitute proof. And there you have it. Some interesting details about the American Pledge of Allegiance. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm now off to avoid the comment section. Baseball, hot dog.
It is our practice to give generously to our church as we are able, keeping in mind both its meaning in our lives and impact in the world. We are thankful to all of you who provide financial support for UUCLC. For those of you who are here today, you can leave your contributions in the wooden box just outside the doors here in the narthex. And you can also check our website for other options for making your donation. We thank you for your support today. You may now stand, if you are able and willing, for hymn 389, gathered here in the great hymnal and on the screen. And Kristen Hughes will come up to lead us in singing this as a round. He has helpers.
Good morning. I am not Mitch Miller. For those of you who may remember who that was. We are going to try something this morning which we haven't done for 3 years or more. It's a round. And gathered here is a relatively simple song that we've all sung before. What we're going to do is the entire room is going to sing it through one time with some help, I believe, right, Terry? Just to learn the words again. And then we're going to break up into 4 sections. We have Chris Cleveland, who's going to be section 1. And Alexandra Layden is going to be section 2. And Don is going to be section 3. And I'm going to bring up the rear, section 4. So just to get identified so you can worry about it before we do this. Section 1 is in this group here. Everybody raise your hand. Put your finger up like this. 1. You'll do whatever Chris tells you. Everybody in this section, from here, over, and all the way to the back. 2. Alexandra is your leader. Raise your hand in the air.
Alexandra, come up here so I can see you.
Put your fingers up in the air. Look up and make sure you got the right number. Alexandra.
We're still short.
Okay. We got too many 2s. From here over, you're not 2. From here over, you are 2. Good, that's a good one. You can be whatever you want in the back. From here, you are 3. Put 3 up in the air. Raise your hands. Okay. That's going to be me. I'll be 3. I changed it. This is a trick. I'm number 3. You're number 3.
All right.
Everybody in this group, raise your hand. 4. Don's going to be your leader. Anybody who doesn't know what number they are. Okay.
Let's put the words up so we can see it.
Put the words up on the screen. Dustin, that's the whole thing, right, Dustin? That's all the words? Okay. So that's going to stay up there the whole time. Let me just repeat again. We're going to sing it all. Each group, when you are called on, is going to sing the song all the way through, like we're going to do all together right now. But you only sing it one time all the way through when it's your turn. And we're going to go through the whole room, and each group will sing all the way through one time. That will magically transform our space. Okay, so everybody together.
Kristen, I'm going to do 4 bars introduction.
Okay, we're going to hear what the music sounds like first before we get to sing. Ready? 1. That's it. Thank you all for being such good sports.
When I was in the 4th grade back in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, I noticed that there was a little girl that was always standing out in the hall in the morning when everybody else was doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Someone explained to me that she was Mennonite, and according to her family's faith, it was wrong to pledge one's allegiance to anything or anyone other than God. My family and childhood church had a different attitude. Every year, Vacation Bible School at my home church began with 3 pledges. I pledged allegiance to the American flag, followed by the singing of America. I pledged allegiance to the Christian flag, followed by the singing of Stand Up for Jesus. And then a pledge of allegiance to the Bible, followed by the singing of the B-I-B-L-E.
B-I-B-L-E.
Looking back at this now in adulthood, my current thinking resonates more with the girl standing in the hall than with the plethora of pledges of my childhood Vacation Bible School. I think too often we let words, flags, and other symbols become important. And may I say this in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, important to the point of idolatry. Do you remember back in 2001 when Roy Moore, then Chief Justice of the Alabama Supreme Court, set up a 5,280-pound granite monument depicting the 10 Commandments in the rotunda of the state's judicial building? My thoughts then and now is that that was rather incongruous, making a golden calf of the 10 Commandments. Still, I do understand how attached we can become to words and symbols. Years ago, I did a year clinical pastoral education module, and one of the floors of the hospital where my concentration was the orthopedic neurological unit. And a number of the patients who had had strokes couldn't speak except they could still recite the Lord's Prayer, the Hail Mary, the 23rd Psalm.
I'm sorry.
While they had lost the words for conversation, somehow that injured brain still knew those words that they had learned from rote. Our Unitarian Universalist faith is purposely creedless. Yet our congregations write vision and mission statements, covenants, and Article 2 of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association of Congregation currently begins. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote. And then what comes next? Do you know? Right, our principles and our purposes. That's not the end of Article 2. The current last words of Article 2 are, "Nothing herein shall be deemed to infringe upon the individual freedom of belief which is inherent in the Universalist and Unitarian heritages, or to conflict with any statement of purpose, covenant, or bond of union used by any congregation, unless such is used as a creedal test." Many Unitarian Universalists have strong feelings for our current purposes and principles, but the rules of our association are that they should be regularly reviewed. And while we may be a creedless denomination, we have over time and currently tried to express in words what is important to our faith. When the Universalists were forming as a denomination in this country, the New England Convention in 1803 adopted what came to be called the Winchester Profession of Faith. They were meeting in Winchester. One of our religious education curricula, Faith Like a River, tells us that the adoption of the Winchester Profession did not come easily. But the disagreement was not about any theological point. The disagreement was whether there should be any profession of faith at all. Some felt that a statement of belief was necessary to clearly distinguish universalism from among the various Christian beliefs being preached at the time. Others felt that any statement, however broad, was limiting to personal conscience. Ultimately, the New England Convention adopted the Winchester Profession with a liberty clause, which allowed individual societies or groups of societies to adopt additional articles of belief, provided they did not conflict with the beliefs laid out in the profession. That same religious education curricula, Faith Like a River, speaking of the other part of our heritage, says that William Channing Gannett, Unitarian minister and a leader in the Western Unitarian Conference in the late 19th century, is remembered as both an outspoken opponent of creedalism and author of the statement, "Things most commonly believed today among us." While Gannett in no way meant his statement as a creed, it was an attempt to articulate the Unitarian beliefs of the day and thereby answer challenges regarding the theological basis of Unitarianism. The statement won wide support at an 1887 meeting of the Western Unitarian Conference. Gannett's statement began, "The Western Conference has neither the wish nor the right to bind a single member by declarations concerning fellowship or doctrine. Yet it thinks some practical good may be done by setting forth in simple words the things most commonly believed among us, the statement being always open to restatement and to be regarded only as the thought of the majority." To make a very large jump in time, in 1961, when the Unitarians and the Universalists merged to become the Unitarian Universalist Association, a set of principles was agreed as part of the merger. That set of principles was not the principles you know today. I'm not going to read them all, but it included these words: "In accordance with these corporate purposes, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Association, dedicated to the principles of a free faith," "free faith, unite in seeking to cherish and spread the universal truths taught by the great prophets and teachers of humanity in every age and tradition, immemorially summarized in the Judeo-Christian heritage as love to God and love to man. To affirm, defend, and promote the supreme worth of every human personality, the dignity of man, and the use of the democratic method in human relationships. To implement our vision of one world by striving for a world community founded on ideals of brotherhood, justice, and peace. To encourage cooperation with men of goodwill in every land. Who do you think first asked for these to be revised? You know, don't you? In an article in the year 2000 in our denominational magazine, the UU World, Warren Ross wrote on how the current Unitarian Universalist Association's principles and purposes were shaped. He says much of the credit for starting on the long and meandering path that led to the adoption of the reformulated principles must go to Unitarian Universalist women. Over many years, women, though not women alone, had been growing unhappy with the blatantly sexist language of the original bylaws. Two other emerging understandings also help the existing principles seem inadequate. First, that traditions other than the Judeo-Christian are important to our heritage. Second, that our relation to the environment is one of our primary religious concerns. But the main emphasis for change did come from the UU Women's Federation. In 1981, a non-sexist revision of the principles and purposes drafted by various women's groups was presented to the General Assembly, which is the annual meeting of our denomination. And it caused great uneasiness, especially among the Unitarian Universalist Christians who looked at that version and saw it as tantamount to writing them out of the association. And so we do what we always do, which is form a committee. A committee to review the proposal was set up. The committee decided to come up with a proposal that acknowledged Unitarian Universalist diversity and on the basis of a continent-wide consultation with as many congregations and individual members as possible. They submitted their first report at the Brunswick, Maine General Assembly in 1982. And the Reverend Walter Royal Jones Jr., who was head of the committee, recalls that one committee member, the Reverend Harry Fuller, came up with a solution to the problem that had created controversy both at the 1960s meetings and at the 1981 meeting, which was whether to refer to the deity and the Judeo-Christian tradition. Fuller suggested dividing the statement into two parts. First, the 7 principles, followed by references to the 5 living traditions we share. A 6th tradition, earth-centered religions, was added to the statement in 1995. But no one objected to language about the Jewish and Christian teachings which call us to respond to God's love when it appeared as part of an uncontroversial summary of the historical influences on Unitarian Universalism. The Unitarian Universalist Association revised principles were adopted in 1985. We always take several votes. The revised statement, which serves as the covenant of the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, remember we are an association of congregations, includes 7 principles, 6 sources of the living tradition, and a statement of the association's purposes. in compliance with a bylaw requirement that the principles be reviewed at least every 15 years, the Commission on Appraisal announced in April of 2006 that it would begin a denomination-wide review process. As you may realize, the purposes and principles were not changed in 2006, but another 15 years have passed. And so in 2021, the Article 2 Study Commission was formed to look at Article 2 of the UUA bylaws, which is where our purposes and principles live. On the Study Commission's webpage, it's noted that our current principles and purposes were last revised in the 1980s. At General Assembly 2017, there was a discussion of amending the principles to add an 8th principle addressing racism and an amended 1st principle addressing non-human life. The 5th principle was the subject of a report in 2009, which dealt with the ways in which General Assembly and other Unitarian Universalist gatherings do and do not embody an inclusive democratic process. The 7th principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, has also been the subject of discussions about possible amendments. So the Article 2 Study Commission has been out there for the last 2 years talking to congregations and people, and in January of this year, they gave their report to the Unitarian Universalist Association's Board of Trustees. And their report includes their proposed revision. And that revision centers the word love. Section 2, and I'm not going to read you their whole revision. You can go on their website and do that. But Section 2 is not called principles. It's called values and covenant. And this is the section likely to be the one that ends up on bookmarks and hanging in religious education classrooms, or a portion of this section. It says, as Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on the foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are, and then there's a drawing. The image of a chalice with an overlay of the word love over the flame, with 6 outstretched arms that create a circle around each of the core values and form a 6-petal flower shape. Each arm is a different color, and clockwise they are interdependence, orange, equity, red, transformation, purple, pluralism, dark blue, generosity, teal, and justice, yellow. And then there is a statement about each value, followed by a covenant statement related to the value. And I won't read them all, but just 2 examples. Interdependence. We honor the interdependent web of existence. We covenant to cherish the earth and all beings by creating and nurturing relationships of care and respect. With humility and reverence, we acknowledge our place in the great web of life, and we work to repair harm and damaged relationships. Pluralism. We celebrate that we are all sacred beings, diverse in culture, experience, and theology. We covenant to learn from one another in our free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We embrace our differences and commonalities with love, curiosity, and respect. And as I said, you can Google the rest. But that's just section 2. Section 3 is titled Inspirations, and it does not line out each of our sources. Because as we noted, we already added one. There's been suggestions about adding others. And so the Article 2 Study Commission has just given us a general paragraph about the varieties of our sources and has not tried to line them all out. Section 4 is titled Inclusion and addresses dealing with systems of power, privilege, and oppression. I believe your congregation has voted to adopt the 8th principle, dealing with racism. No, okay, I am wrong. So it was another congregation I recently spoke to who said they had. It might have been Nature Coast. So, but that is kind of where that is addressed, as it is also in the values and covenant. And section 5 is our traditional end, freedom of belief. Congregational freedom and the individual's right of conscience are central to our Unitarian Universalist heritage. Congregations may establish statements of purpose, covenants, and bonds of union, so long as they do not require that members adhere to a creed. The first vote on this proposal will be at this year's General Assembly in June, and that's the first vote. This is never a one-year process. We do not have a Unitarian Universalist flag or a Unitarian Universalist creed or a Unitarian Universalist pledge. And no one is going to make you stand out in the hall if you are not willing to recite whatever Article 2 may become with your hand on your heart. Still, we constantly strive to state, as William Channing Gaddett put it, things commonly believed today among us. And I invite you to stand as you are comfortable for the singing of our closing hymn. Number 86, I believe. Yes, Blessed Spirit of my life. Please be seated for the closing words. The closing words are from 19th century Unitarian preacher Theodore Parker. be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living.
Yes. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Everyone is invited to our reception in the social hall.